My name is Bruce Antkowiak. I would really have loved to have welcomed you to this year's oral argument competition in person at our Rogers Center. But like everything else in the world, this nice event has been turned upside down. So we're presenting this to you virtually this year and inviting you to participate by filming opening and closing arguments and then sending them in to us for judging by various people that I will have review them to try to determine the best of the opening and closing statements. Now, this year's case will be sent to you in two different formats so that you will make sure you have a complete understanding of the facts. You will receive a written summary of the case, but you will also be able to access videos that have been done of the main witnesses. There are some other facts in the document that will be necessary for you to supplement, but the principal witnesses in the case will also be able to be viewed on tape. You will see that this case is a murder case, and it's about the murder of a man named Dre Martini in Podunk County, Pennsylvania, late one night. The defendant in the case is 7 and 7, the bartender at a local establishment called Lush's, who has been accused of shooting Martini because he just hated the guy who was the town drunk and who caused him some problems. Mr. 7 is going to be defending the case on the basis that he was not the shooter, but that a barmaid who he was recently started to date was in fact the person who killed Martini. Now you're going to see 4 videos. You're going to see the video by the detective who investigated the case and who can summarize a lot of the facts that were gathered in the course of it. You will see a video by one of the bartenders, Iris Whiskey, who has some information to set the scene about what happened that night. You will also see Mr. 7's video, and you will also see the video of the individual he is accusing of actually being the killer. Another barmaid named Slojin Fizz. She, of course, will tell you that she had nothing to do with this and provide some additional incriminating information about Mr. 7. Watch these videos and understand that the people who are doing them are, first of all, the Assistant General Counsel here at Saint Vincent, Eileen Flynn, and then my three dear colleagues in the Criminology Department up here, Dr. Eric Koshin, Dr. Sarah Daly, and Dr. Kayla Jakimowski. They care about this project because they deeply care about making an educational experience a great experience for you. And if you ever join us here at St. Vincent as a student, you'll see exactly what that means in person. So again, please forgive us for having to do this way this year. Next year we hope to have you all back in person to see the campus, to do the competition, and to have a free lunch on us. But for this year, enjoy the video. And remember that advocacy is a critical thing to learn, no matter whether you become a lawyer or not. The world needs a lot of help and a lot of changing, and being able to become an effective advocate will help a lot of people, and that will make your life a life well lived. Thanks very much. We hope to see you soon.
I'm Detective Casey Closed. I'm a detective with the Podunk County Bureau of Detectives in Pennsylvania. On June 1st at 0200 hours, I was in the office and received a call from a local patrolman that a body had been found on Main Street in Drinker, Pennsylvania. When I arrived at the location, I observed a male, white, lying face down on the pavement in the middle of Main Street. As I approached him, I realized that there was a gunshot wound to the back of his head. I took the deceased's wallet from his back pants pocket and discovered that his name was Dry Martini, age 45, of Drinker, Pennsylvania. While waiting for the coroner and the crime lab to arrive, I took a brief look around where the body had been found. Near the body, I found a partial footprint of a shoe that appeared to be men's. However, it was in mud and it was only partial, so I didn't have exact knowledge of what type of shoe made that footprint. I noticed a patch of mud on the street near the body as well. In addition, there appeared to be a mud-like substance on the deceased right pant leg. Also near the body, I found a small cocktail napkin with the word Lushes on it. I knew from my familiarity with the area that there was a bar nearby named Lushes. Once the coroner and crime lab arrived, I began my canvass of the neighborhood. While walking around 3 blocks away from where the body was found, I noticed a man standing there watching nervously. I identified myself as a detective with the Podunk County Police Bureau, and the person identified himself as Mr. Riley Flower. He stated that he worked at the bakery nearby and was taking out the trash in the alley behind the bakery when he heard a loud popping noise. He immediately ran to the street on Main Street and saw a man. He did not see the man's face, he said, walking away from the scene casually. The man did not appear to be hurried. He could not see the man's face. He did say he noticed that the man appeared to be wearing what could have been an apron. The next morning, I returned to the police station, waiting for the results from the crime lab and for the report from the coroner's office. In talking with my police chief, he mentioned I may want to talk to a Mr. Buzzcut in Drinker, who was the barber and who was known as knowing everything that goes on in Drinker, Pennsylvania. I replied to my chief that I would follow up on that after I had received the coroner's report and the crime lab report. Shortly thereafter, I received the crime lab report, which indicated that on the napkin that was found, there were traces of tiny bits of lime, the citrus fruit. There were no known fingerprints on the napkin and no other identifiable information that could aid in our search for the perpetrator. In addition, the crime lab noted that they had taken a photograph of the partial footprint from the night before and stated that it appeared to be a men's size 11 medium width shoe. That was all the information they could provide to me. I spoke with the coroner who relayed that Mr. Martini had died of a gunshot wound to the back of his head. The coroner reported that it appeared to have been shot farther than 18 inches away, as there was no gunshot residue found anywhere on the skull or on the body. The bullet could not be retrieved. It had exited out of the front of the victim's face, and a canvas of the area did not turn up a bullet or bullet fragment. The coroner could tell me that it appeared to have come from a .45 caliber shell. He was not sure if it was a pistol or another type of gun, but that it definitely came from a .45 caliber shell. After I finished my time with the coroner's report and the crime lab, I proceeded back to Drinker to meet with Mr. Buzzcut. Mr. Buzzcut said he was familiar with Mr. Martini, that he was known around the town as the town drunk. He thought it would be helpful for me to speak with the owner and a bartender at Lushes for more information. He said that Sven and Seven, the owner of the bar, had a beef with Mr. Martini. Mr. Martini, as the town drunk, was known to be also very cheap and frugal. Mr. Cutt said that this really annoyed Mr. Seven, in that Mr. Martini would show up at Lush's drunk, having pre-gamed at home, and then just drink orange juice all night at the bar, being obnoxious to other customers and driving away business. After talking to Mr. Cutt around 6 p.m. on June 2nd, I decided to go to Lush's bar and do some undercover work. When I entered the bar, it wasn't very crowded, so I took a seat at the bar. While waiting for the bartender to get me a drink, I noticed an area behind the bar with a curtain that led to a back room, and the sign said employees only. Without going into the room, I inched closer and could hear noise and people talking in the background. I distinctly heard a male voice say, and I'm going to check my notes because I want to get this correct, "I want those shoes steam cleaned and polished up by tomorrow morning. Get every speck of mud off of them." No one came out from the back area at any point in time while I was there. I then started talking to the bartender, Iris Whiskey. Miss Whiskey explained that she had been there the night before. We were just chatting, and I asked about the crowd at the bar. She mentioned that there was a loud, obnoxious, regular drunk who always came in and got into it with Mr. Seven, the owner, and also bartender. Miss Whiskey and I were talking, and I asked her if she knew about the person who got popped the night before, if he was a customer. She said yes, that the person that she told me about earlier, the loud, obnoxious drunk, was Mr. Martini. I said, interesting. I asked her if she knew if he had a beef with anyone at the bar. And she said, well, Sven, the bartender and owner, Mr. Seven, didn't like him because he never bought any drinks. He came drunk. He would drink orange juice all night. He would annoy the other customers and was just a plain old jag-off. Miss Whiskey and I continued chatting. She did say that Sven ignored Mr. Martini all night until he had it no more. Around 1 a.m., he told Mr. Martini to just leave, that he was obnoxious, he was a drunk, he wasn't welcome there, and he just needed to leave. Mr. Martini didn't want to leave. Whiskey said that Martini challenged Mr. Seven to a game of pool, and that if he, Mr. Martini, won, then Mr. Martini would get $100 from Mr. Seven, and Mr. Seven, if he won, he would get his wish. Mr. Martini would never ever come into the bar again. Mr. Martini and Mr. Seven played pool. Mr. Martini won. That did not make Mr. Seven happy, apparently. Even more of what made Mr. Seven unhappy was Mr. Martini taunting him, counting out the money that Mr. Seven had just paid him, and saying, I want all your money, you're stuck with me. I want all your money, you're stuck with me. Mr. Seven finally had enough, according to Miss Whiskey, and shouted at Mr. Martini, if you count that money or say that one more time, I'm going to kick you all the way down Main Street in with my size 11 shoes. Miss Whiskey then told me she left the bar at 2 o'clock in the morning when her shift ended. She said at the same time as she left, there were still 3 people left in the bar, Mr. Martini, Mr. Seven, and another waitress, Miss Fizz. She thought Miss Fizz might have some additional information for me. I thanked her, had a few more drinks, and then I left. I went to Miss Fizz's apartment, identified myself as a police detective, and I explained why I was there. She seemed nervous. She indicated that, yes, she was at the bar the night before, but that she left at 2 o'clock around the same time as Miss Whiskey. She said that Mr. Seven was still at the bar there, and she didn't know where Mr. Martini was. She also indicated that she was supposed to meet up with Mr. Seven after afterwards when he was finished closing the bar. But Mr. Seven had called her and said, I have some things I have to take care of, so I'll be a little late. I'll see you later. Miss Fizz continued that she didn't really know Mr. Martini. She indicated that she was Mr. Seven's girlfriend, that they had just begun dating. I asked her if she knew if Mr. Seven had a gun. She said yes, she knew he had a gun, but that he kept it at the bar. She had never used it or seen it. She said when she went back into work the next day to pick up a note tablet, she noticed that the gun was missing. With that information, I went to court and received a search warrant to search the bar and Mr. Seven's place of residence. The police executed the search warrant, and at the bar they found a $20 bill in the cash register that had Mr. Martini's fingerprints on it. No weapon was found at the bar. In addition, the police also searched Mr. Seven's apartment. They did not find a weapon at Mr. Seven's apartment, nor did they find any other type of smoking gun. However, they did find multiple brochures about handguns and rifles, including a brochure on a .45 caliber pistol. Mr. Seven was arrested on September 4th, 2020. During my interview with him, in which he gave a statement, he proclaimed his innocence and said that he believed that Miss Fizz, who had previously dated Mr. Martini, possibly killed Mr. Martini. During that time speaking with Mr. Seven, I realized and recognized his voice as being the same male voice that I had heard on my first visit to Luscious regarding having shoes steam cleaned. Mr. Seven's statement has previously been entered into the record by the district attorney. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Iris Whiskey. Today's June 2nd. I already spoke to the police about some of these things, so I'm not sure why I have to do this again. It's my place of employment. It's not really great for people to come in and see police officers sneaking around in corners, pretending to just lean against walls, listening to private conversations. But you guys want me to discuss something that's already happened. Martini was in here last night. He was drunk. He's always drunk. That's a part of being in a bar. It's helpful when people come in and they're drinking to excessive amounts. I mean, the more drunk people get, the better my tips are, so I don't have any problem with that. He's always in here. He's always loud and obnoxious. He's always stumbling out of here. We always have to kick him out. Nothing about this was any different than at any other time. So he was in here. We start closing everything down. Martini stuck around. Sabin asked him nicely to leave multiple times. They kind of got into it, but they got into it frequently enough. He was always in here, harassing our customers, harassing me, harassing the other bartenders. Again, nothing out of the ordinary. And then they decide to strike up some bet, I assume to de-escalate the situation, over a game of pinball. So if Martini won, he got $100 from the petty cash, and if Sabin won or Martini lost, then he was never going to come back. So it really seemed like a good deal all the way around, until of course Martini won, and then he spends the rest of the time jumping around here, throwing his hands up, talking about how great he is, how he won, asking where his $100 is. And everybody's tensions are high, everybody's annoyed. I wanted to go home, I couldn't leave. When Sabin turns around and says something, I'm sure it wasn't even that big of a deal, something about putting his size 11 on up around Martini's rear end, and wanting to kick him out of the bar. But like I said, I mean, those kind of things happened frequently, not just between Sabin and Martini, but Martini and other customers, right? We were always dealing with his problems and him being drunk and obnoxious. At some point, I left the bar around 2 a.m. Martini was still here going on and on about different things, but it didn't seem like it was going to be really anything different than any other night. And I already gave police the note that I found behind the bar. And sure, I mean, it looked like Saban's handwriting, but we slip each other's notes to let people know who's had too much to drink without causing a scene. And it said, "I hate that stupid drunk," which, I mean, could be about anybody. So I really don't have very much more information for you. I've already told you this. I've gone over this before. I'm just trying to work. I've got nothing else for you. I hope that you have the best luck finding whoever did this. But I mean, nobody's going to miss him.
My name is Sven N. Seven. I was named after my grandma. She liked to drink as well. Just because she liked to drink doesn't make me a criminal. And I'm here because I'm accused of murdering Mr. Dre Martini, a notorious pain in the rear my entire life. Let me start at the beginning if I can. I work at Lush's. I'm a bartender. It's not Cheers, but it's not Roadhouse either. It's a nice bar. We do well. We have no problems, no riffraff. We've stuck around for a long time, even through COVID. You know why? Because we serve straw beer on draft, every type. Nice frosted mugs, great place to be, and I make a killer martini that James Bond himself would enjoy. So, as is normal on any night, Mr. Martini liked to wander in after he got smashed at home, drinking for free. Then he comes into my bar and starts messing around with customers, and all he drinks is orange juice. He's not going to run up his tab at Lush's. No. He's just going to be a royal pain in the rear to me and all my customers. No one likes him. In fact, I can't stand him. I hate him. But that doesn't make me a murderer. If that made me a murderer, then everybody else in that bar is a murderer too, because no one could stand him. So as is the case with anything else, I get stuck in the middle of it all the time. I'm telling him to calm down, watch his mouth, quit bugging other patrons in the bar, but he's not listening. So on the night in question, June 1st, I tell him he's got to go, and he's fighting with me. I'm not leaving, you can't make me, and he's running his gums the whole time, and I've had enough. So he makes this bet with me. He says, let's play a game of pinball. Whoever wins, the bet between us gets their way. I said, fine, I want you out of here, not just tonight, forever. So if I win, you're history. Like third period, dude, you're history. And he says if he wins, he wants $100 from me. So we play pinball. He gets lucky, and he wins. And I pay up, because I'm no Welch. My grandma may have been a drunk, but she's not a Welch. So I pay him the $100. But he can't win with class. No. He's got to run his mouth all over the bar, dancing and prancing. Look what I won. I'm so rich. Look at the money I got. I gave him several warnings before I told him, if you don't get out of this bar, I'm going to shove this size 11 where the sun don't shine and escort you out myself. He just keeps yapping his gums, just keeps running amok. So finally he leaves. Later on, he comes back, he's messing with the waitresses, he's messing with the other people. And I see him talking to Fizz Slow Gin, one of my waitresses, who I just started seeing. I mean, I can't blame her for seeing me. I mean, look at this. I'm a nice bartender, I run a nice place, I'm a decent guy. I come to find out that Fizz and Mr. Martini, they used to have a thing for each other. They dated for months, but then she broke it off. And he's still pestering her. He's bugging her. He won't leave her alone. And I asked her if she needed me to handle it, because I would love to handle it. I wouldn't kill him. I would just beat him to the point where he wished he was dead. But again, that doesn't make me a murderer. She says, no, I can handle it myself. I'm a big girl, all this stuff. Okay, fine. You handle it your way, whatever you want to do. I come to find out, though, that she took my .45 pistol that I kept at the bar for personal defense and in case any moron tried to rob the bar. I found out that she took that .45 pistol and she left after him. I didn't know what the argument was about, but I think it had something to do with him having some compromising pictures of her. And if he didn't keep seeing her, he was going to share those compromising photos with everybody. A real gentleman, let me tell you. So she runs out after him. And I'm going to read my statement that I gave to the officers on September 4th. I'm going to read it word for word. How I gave it to the officers. I hated Martini. Everybody hated him. That night he was particularly obnoxious, and he even hung around after 2 a.m. when the bar was closed, and we're not supposed to have anybody around. That wasn't in the statement, those are my words. After another bartender left Iris, I saw him talking to Fizz Slow Gin, the waitress I just started dating. She screamed at him to let her alone, and he staggered out of the bar. She then told me that she had been dating him for several months, which was news to me, and that he was threatening to publish some compromising photos he had of her unless she kept seeing him on the side. I told her not to worry about it, but she grabbed the .45 pistol I kept in the bar and she ran out after him. I waited just a minute to see if the big girl could handle the stuff on her own. I thought she'd come back. When I got outside, I saw her in her car going south on Beer Chaser Avenue. I ran after her and she made a left onto Main Street, right by the Five and Dime. When I got to Main Street, I saw her car slow down by Switzer, where Martini was standing. I saw her stop the car, reach out the window, and shoot him. She saw me, threw the gun at me, and begged me to help her. I went up to Martini, but he was wasted. I know I might have touched him with my shoe. In fact, I probably wiped it off on him because there was mud in the area. I took the gun, my gun, that she took without my permission. I walked back to the bar. On my way home, I threw the gun off the bridge into Highball River. So now she's trying to pin this on me? No way. I was dumb enough to help her, but I'm not dumb enough to take a murder rap for her. I had nothing to do with this. I hated this guy. I paid him when he beat me in the bet, but I had nothing to do with his murder. That's all fake news. It's fake news. And you can't be arrested and you can't be convicted for hating somebody. This is still America, last time I checked. I didn't even have any motive. I deal with his crap all the time, day in and day out. Fizz was the one that had the motive. She's the one that killed him. I'm just here taking the heavy because I'm a nice guy. Can you blame me?
Yeah, my name is Slow Gin Fizz. Been a waitress at Lush's Bar for like a year. I've been seeing that bartender, that guy Saint Vincent, for like a few weeks. I don't know, I worked on May 31st. Yeah, I remember that dead guy. He was doing what he always did. He got all hammered, but I was dealing with other customers. I don't pay no attention to that. I remember him and Sven playing pinball, and they got into it. But whatever, I was focused on my tips. I don't know, when I was doing my prep work early in the day, Sven said he wanted to come over and hang out after he closed the bar. Like, Iris and Dre were the last ones in the bar that night when I left at 2 a.m. I got home, but then Sven called me and said he had to dispose of something before he came over. Yeah, I know he had that 45 in the bar. He kept it there. He always used to say that, like, the only thing that can stop a good guy with the gun is a bad guy with the gun. It was in a drawer next to the cash register where I kept my notepad for work, so when I went in the next day to get my notepad, the gun was gone.